Hi, I'm here with James Lyndsay today at the Quality Assurance Conference in Sofia, Bulgaria. Hi, James. Pretty nice to meet you. Can you tell us what is your session about?
My session is a kind of technical session. It's called How to Find the Truth in a Multitude of Tests, and it's about taking on the opportunities that software gives you when you think to yourself, I could just do one test here, or I could do a few thousand similar tests and look at a range of values. And that approach can tell you some fairly interesting things. It can show you perhaps where bugs are, but more importantly, it can show you where things change unexpectedly. So it's a good finding surprises. I think the difficulty with it is partly that it's hard to work out what to do with all those results. So we'll talk about how I visualize the results, how I make them into something which you can appreciate just like that. And we'll look at a few things that I've got, some software that I've made, some software that other people have made. We'll look at some real software, and we'll do a little bit of testing on each of those. And I don't know whether the crowd will be up for it. I expect they will, but I've bought a couple of things to test, as I always do. And I think in 25 minutes we'll get through, well, lots, obviously.
Okay. What it takes to get to that level, where you are right now, and what is the path of the quality assurance engineer?
There are other talks that are both technically and organizationally more adept that I might do, but this is about getting really back to basics. I spend a lot of time with testers. I'm a test strategist, so that means that I work with organizations that want to work out how to plan their testing and what to plan, which means that some things they won't plan. And I try to specialize in adaptive approaches, and you put all sorts of things together and you hack organizations into shape, and you try to use whatever testing skills you have around the place. And I think that the skill of finding problems is something that I like to encourage. There's a lot of work being done, particularly on the standards side, which is about documenting what you've done, which is fine, but it's not the job.
Right.
The job is finding out what the software does, what the system does, the truth about the thing you've built. So it's me getting back to the basics of how to find out the truth about what we've built by using straightforward tools and simple tests that everybody can do. And it's partly because I think that one is sometimes distracted by all the urge to prove what one has done. I think one can prove what one has done quite a lot, but if you haven't actually found anything useful out about the system that's being built, so that you can give that back to the people who are building it, and you can be one of the people who are building it and build a better thing, then you're failing as a tester. So that's how this talk comes up. How do I get to that point? I've been testing since I was 18.
Oh, wow.
I'm 46. So I don't know how I've got to this point. It's taken a lot of years of doing lots of different things. But I don't think that anything I'm going to show in this particular talk will be genuine news to any tester. But what I think might be interesting is how those things are used in combination.
Right.
And that can be a very powerful thing to bring to an audience. I'm looking forward to that.
That's your know-how. That you gathered through the years.
Over those years of ridiculousness, you end up with a sense of what will work in combination, perhaps rather than what might work directly. So you've got a sense of paths and choices, and we'll see whether I can bring some of that to the audience today.
So you say finding the what the software does is the critical thing, the actual thing that a quality assurance engineer should do. Is that does this mean that actually the quality assurance engineer has to be more technical skilled or more kind of a people skilled oriented?
I'm going to briefly withdraw from the idea of a quality assurance engineer.
All right.
I'm a tester and I'm a test strategist. Now, quality assurance is a process-based approach of saying we believe that quality is achieved in these ways, and we use these ways and we measure whether we're still on that path. And that path exists to ensure a degree of feedback into the project. It's not that... But quality assurance, the idea that one is getting to quality because one can assure something, is a process question.
Okay.
I'm not a quality assurance engineer. I've done a lot of process work. I've done a lot of process improvement. I'm not sure it improves the quality of the product in the end. What it improves is the defendability of that product. And that's a different thing. So I'm not a QA engineer.
All
I'm
right.
a tester. It's not that I don't work with QA engineers and value them, and it's not that I've not done it in the past, but I'm a tester. In terms of technical or people stuff, quality assurance is primarily a situation where you set out to do something and you measure whether you're doing those things. And that is neither a people thing nor a technical thing. It's a process thing. I think it has more people than process in it. If I'm testing and I'm looking for surprises, I love the people side of testing. I love that I can find surprises just by going and having a chat with people or looking at what changes have been made in the GitHub repo or whatever else. You know, I know that there are people behind the artifact that is being built. There are people who've made the expectations, people who've made the documentation, people who've made the thing, people who want to use it. That's enormously important. And I really love that bit. And I think that to be an effective tester, you have to be able to bring a special something. Sometimes that's people, ability to understand what people want. And sometimes it's technical ability. And sometimes it's something that moves between those two.
Right.
So what I appreciate in my testing teams is a diversity of purpose and a diversity of skill, rather than necessarily people things or technical things. It's that somebody knows how a particular group of people think, and somebody else says, well, that kind of thinking leads to this style of design, and this style of design leads to this style of weakness. And if we think we're developing this style of weakness generically in our product, then we need to put some things around that to try and avoid those problems. That's the kind of diversity of skill that I want.
Right.
It's highly technological and highly people focused.
It's highly technological,
Yeah.
right, right. Some people will actually don't like themselves to be called testers. They kind of find it a little bit inappropriate in a way. And
it's their job title. They choose what they want.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm not saying that I agree with them. I'm just that I understand you found the opportunity in this position to kind of excel and take the challenge on a technical level in there. So it's not about working with the process and the management side of the quality of the software, but it's kind of the technical side. That is what testing is about, right?
For me, yes. And I think the thing is that when I work with testers who are really, really good at process, what that actually means is really good at finding their way around the process. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that doesn't really mean good at process. It means that process is a barrier. So at the same time, when I talk to testers who are really good at, people say technical stuff. So let's say that I've got a tester on the team who knows his way around the operating system that the thing we're building on is running. He knows his or her way around that really, really well. That person is going to be able to use, and it's the same thing, ways round the operating system to find out what they want to know, and information that is really about what we're building. And then in that case, the operating system certainly is a barrier in some ways to doing things, but it's also an enabler. So yeah, the technical people who I would seek on a team, they understand a system well enough to be able to use it and abuse it in equal measure. And by doing those things and being extremely knowledgeable, they get the system to do what they need it to do in the end. Now, that's fine with the built thing, but if you've got a process that you're trying to follow specifically, and your really good guys actually know their ways around the process, it's kind of failing from the outset. Yeah. I shouldn't say that too loudly. My guys in process will be cross with me. My process hackers. Yeah.
So yeah, if that sounds pretty exciting. This is actually what I would think a really good tester position would be about, and it's more close to the what we do as engineers, and not like it's much more close to the technical side of the software, not about the management and the business side.
If I'm talking to a technical person
Right.
And yes, it will be.
Right. Yeah.
If I'm talking to a technical person. And if I'm talking to a business person, it'll be about the business. And if I'm talking to a user, it'll be about what they experience. The trick is that diversity of experiences. The trick is to bring all those things together. Now, one of the things that is characteristic of testers on a project, before there was, if you like, quite such a community around testing, was that the testers always knew the system better than anybody else. By them, and this is your experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
And ultimately, that's one of the things that makes a really good tester, is that ability to take in all that information from lots of different headings, lots of different places, and say, the users really want this. There is a constraint in the system that means it can't be done like that. The business needs this kind of deadline and that kind of technology. To understand all that together and the tensions that has on a piece of software as an artifact, and to see where that may take it. And as I say, to understand where one is building generic weaknesses. And yes, it is technical if I'm talking to technical people.
But it also requires a lot of people skills in order to communicate with all these people, right? Do you have any struggles with particular types of kind of positions, like testers and developers don't get well pretty often?
I don't know. As we grow more multilingual, I'm British, and traditionally in Britain we can't speak any other languages. I think that there are often linguistic and cultural barriers more than there are, if you like, role-based barriers. Mm-hmm. Where I find a constant difficulty to communicate, and something that I need to work on, is when I work with people who aren't looking for trouble. So that it's an entirely reasonable situation for an organisation to be in, is to say, we don't want to know about the problems that we may have made, because then we're legally liable for them. We have to fix them.
Right.
Or somebody whose primary aim is delivering a thing on time without necessarily the thing being what anybody wants. And they don't want to look for problems either. I have difficulty working with people who are those kind of stakeholders, the people who don't want to know the information that I bring, whether it's good or bad. It's a little bit like, I'm going to use a loaded statement. It's a little bit like working in politics and only talking to people who are interested in the social pages of the newspaper.
Yeah.
You feel, I'm just talking to somebody in a completely different way here. Their interests are not my interests. When I go to an organisation and say, we're going to look for trouble in these ways, and we're going to look for this kind of trouble, and we're going to deal with that trouble when we find it like this, and somebody says, well, fundamentally, James, I don't understand why we're looking for trouble in the first place, then if they're controlling my budget, that's kind of the end of the conversation. So that's where I find a problem. And there are people who manage that well. I've worked with them. I value them. I try to put them in that position so they can deal with that. So they're the interface to me. That's what I try. So yes, but in terms of, there can be a big problem. It's a classic problem between testers and people who make things, is when a tester comes and says, the thing you've made is ugly. Okay. And we know that. The trick for me has always been to be as closely involved with the people who are making it as possible. Right. And the people who want it as possible, and the people who are paying for it as possible, and to be as swift with my information to each of those parties as I possibly can be. And then they appreciate the information that something isn't what they want. Right. Because they can fix it.
So communication is key.
Early communication is key.
Yeah. Early.
Keeping those lines open and being able to say to somebody, this is what it does. I don't think that's what you want. Do you want to do something about it sooner or later? And they go, oh, sooner. Thank you so much for telling me.
Yeah.
Whereas the other side is, I've found this problem. You can't use it, or you can't sell it, or you're going to have to fix it. Everybody hates that. Yeah. Of course they hate it because it's too late. So keeping the communication open so that you can do it early, which often means asking people questions they don't want to hear initially, because they don't necessarily, they've got other things on their minds.
So being proactive is kind of the successful and kind of characteristic of a good tester.
Well, remember that I'm a strategist, so I get lucky. Okay. I get drawn into organisations that say, "Oh, we need a strategist, and we are going to have to talk to them a lot." So I'm very lucky in that.
So, is there any kind of a tester's manifesto or something like this that people can read and kind of take the guideline of what it takes?
There's been a few. I think that there was one, 4 or 5 years ago by the usual crew, James Barker and Michael Walton, I think, came up with one. I think I saw one from Matt Huisser in America within the last 18 months or so. People talk about schools of testing, a school being, if you like, a set of beliefs that you base things on. I find it easy to think of it like fish. A school just being a school of fish that follow each other around. If you go to European sites like ISST or the conference sites of Let's Test, and to an extent Eurostar and Copenhagen Context, or the Americans with the AST and their conference CAST, you'll find all sorts of things that tell you how to be a tester. Whether your organisation has signed up for those or not, heaven knows. First place you have to start with local dialogue and local vocabulary and see what your organisation who currently pays you wants. If you could live with that, then that's what you should do. If you can't live with that, then you go to these places and you say, what's the rest of the world doing? And maybe I can find somebody like that. So
how do people start to change their organization? Where they should start from?
That's an immensely complex question that I can't answer without seeing the organisation that needs change. But go buy Jerry Weinberg's books. People out there, go buy Jerry Weinberg's books on organisational change. That's where I would start.
All right.
If I went to a client and had a chat with them and they said, we need to change your organisation and we need to change it in this way, then actually probably they don't need me if they've already made that decision. But if they were asking me to make the change, then the first place I'd start is I'd have a think about what they want, think about what I can bring, and I'd return to Jerry Weinberg's books because that's where I go back to. There's a big stack of 4, Managing Quality. That's where I go to.
Oh, that's awesome. I'll make sure that these are included in the notes of the video.
Yeah. Yeah,
right.
Well, they're great. So yeah, I can send you a link. I'm sure he'd be grateful to sell more. I think they're all available on Smashwords. Jerry's been published very widely, but I think he's got the copyrights for most of his things back and sells them himself on Smashwords, so they're available instantly. So,
awesome. All right. Anything that you want to say to the attendees and to the members of the Association of Software Engineers?
Nothing comes to mind immediately because that's a surprise question. What do I want to say to attendees? Well, I'm going to say something to them later on, and they can take away what they want. In terms of software developers here in Sofia, Martin, I've just been talking about the influence that outsourcing has had on architectural skills. Would that be right?
Right.
I'm not saying that one should do anything and hack a solution in, but the experienced people that I've worked with in almost every area of software have gained their qualifications after their experience and not the other way around. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There are many ways of gaining experience. It doesn't have to be commercial. You can put yourself into an open source project that has extremely big enterprise stuff going on. If you really want to be a part of an enterprise bit of software and you feel you can't in the organization you've got, just go and apply yourself to Wikipedia or Ubuntu. So experience should be gained, I hope, before certification.
In the field. In the field,
yeah. Go do stuff. And if it turns out that the industry here does not support that, and I don't know whether it does or doesn't, and it might do, if the industry doesn't support that, we in IT are in an amazing position of having real life, real size projects that we can just sign up for and learn from. And I see absolutely no reason why experience can't be gained there. And I've gained lots of experience in participating in lots of voluntary things. So go play in the real world, and you'll come back with something you can use in your organization.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you
for this session. Thank you very much.
Love to talk to you.